Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sunday Morning Coffee with Lisa. I'm Spiritual Coach Lisa Hop. It is Sunday, August 23rd, 2020. Thank you so much for joining me on this kind of cloudy Sunday morning here in New Jersey, in America. For those of you who are joining me from outside the continental U.S., I welcome you. To all of those that are joining me that come every week, thank you so much. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your thumbs up. Even though I don't know who you are, I appreciate it very much. Like, subscribe, share. Please, if you enjoy my podcast, let people know about it. I appreciate it so much. And for those of you joining me for the first time, welcome. Please check out my website at lisahop.com. That's LISAHOPP.com for all my upcoming events, my services, my books, all about me and why I do the work I do as a spiritual coach. Now, do you hear it? I'm actually a bit groggy on this Sunday morning, but I'm going to get through this podcast. I went to bed a little late last night after a work day. And actually, to be honest, I stayed up a little late commenting on some things that I had seen. Kind of broke my own rule because I kind of made a rule this week. When I see things that are not truthful, that I was going to keep rolling. Kind of put out a statement a bit on my personal Facebook page. Kind of advising people on what to do. And when you're at this time in our country being exposed to information, no matter what that information may be, to make sure that what you're hearing is the truth. I'm not personally anti-media. I believe we need an essential media. We need a media to keep check on our leaders. We need to know what's going on. We need to be informed. But there is a difference between media and propaganda. And there are some networks, some stations in this country, and I think all over the world, honestly, that pose as news networks or news stations when really they're just propaganda outlets. So you have to be very sure about where we're getting our information from. We also have to be very sure that just because we like what we're being told doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth. It should speak to us at our core. What I mean by that is when I, years ago, heard someone who channels, I was very skeptical about people who channel because I didn't know if it was really coming from another source or were they just making it up. But if I heard someone channel and at the very core, my very gut, my very solar plexus area that stores my soul and my intuition, if it spoke to me, if I said it within myself, I think they're saying the truth, I really do, then I accepted what they said, whether or not I knew or not for sure if they were really channeling it from a higher dimension or another dimension. That's what we should do all the time with what we're being exposed to. Now, how do you know? It is your gut, not your head or not your heart. In the gut area, it's a little voice, it's a little whisper. Sometimes it's so subtle and so hidden that it does feel like it's a whisper. It's not, doesn't get you riled up, it doesn't get you passionate, fired up. That's not your soul, that's not your intuition. That's not your core. That's not your connection to God. That's your feelings, that's your beliefs, that's your mind. Because your mind can be programmed with anything you allow it to be programmed with. So the mind doesn't necessarily tell you the truth. It tells you what it thinks you want to believe. It tells you what it thinks you want to hear, according to what you've been programming it with. That little whisper within the center of us, that will always tell us the truth. It's that moment, and you've all been there. You have all been there where something didn't work out, perhaps with a relationship or with your whisper about a new job you started. And then when it all went haywire, you said to yourself, I had a feeling. I had a feeling and I didn't listen to it. That's what I'm talking about. That feeling that you get. And you don't know why you're getting it. But your head ignores it. Your mind ignores it. Your chest ignores it. It's that moment. Well, it's not. But I remember I was going to use the airplane scenario, but honestly, I don't want to because it's a big grave. I don't know how much that happens. But I remember a few years ago, I was going on a road trip with a few other people, and every single one of us knew it was a odd day. Something wasn't right, but we ignored it. We ignored it every step of the way, and then we got into a car accident. Now, we came through the car accident all right. I had some glass in my eyes, but it didn't cause any irreparable damage, and we ended up still going forward with our vacation, but it kind of ruined our vacation because we were very upset with ourselves. Why didn't we listen? Sometimes we all do that. We choose not to listen. Maybe we don't listen because we really like that person and we really want it to work out. And so we listen to all the cues, all the red flags. We don't listen to all the cues and all the red flags. Perhaps we really want that job and we just tell ourselves, or maybe it'll work out, maybe it'll be better. So we can pre-program ourselves. Excuse me, it is early. Recording this at 7:30, but it feels early. We talk ourselves into settling. We talk ourselves into ignoring the inner voice. But that inner voice was always given to us. It was always given to us to serve us, to always put us in a place of safety, to always give us wisdom, to always direct us smoothly down our path. And so we make life harder for ourselves when we don't listen to it, when we go against what our voice is saying. And woven within that is common sense. We often don't use our common sense, which is a part of our highest nature as well. Now, some would say, I am using my common sense. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're listening to what your beliefs are. You're listening to what your perspectives are as formulated within you through previous experience and emotions. Be very careful. Common sense is common sense. It's not given to you by your mother or your grandparents. It's not a formal superstition. It is common sense. Something doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. So think about that. Remember that. Try to use that God-given knowing, connection to your soul, common sense, gut. Your gut has a divine purpose of steering you down the road and steering you towards living your life purpose, making the right decisions, not having to suffer, not having to live the boot camp that is this life. So let's say, for instance, that at the beginning of this pandemic, you had all of you been tied in to your gut. You would have known there was a divine purpose going on. You would have understood who was the helper and who was the villain. You would have followed your inner guidance to cope with it, and you would have gotten through it okay. And so it would have made a very big difference. So some of us, I would not like to think a lot of us, but some of us did not do that. We lived in fear, or we didn't tune in at all and just kind of went with it and played it by ear, and maybe that's not so bad, but it still would have empowered you and made things much easier if you had tuned in to the bigger picture and the divine source of what was going on. And what was going on has been divine. This whole year has been about divine transformation and divine evolution and divine change for the overall good. And so, knowing that does not make things harder. It makes things better. It makes things easier to cope with. It also opens up both sides of your brain to be able to create, to acclimate, to adjust, to be able to cope, and also to come out of it in the best possible way. Still not too late. You can still do that. Go inward. Always go inward using your higher mind and your gut. Now on to our topic, which through all of that I almost forgot. What did I want to speak to all of you about today? Well, that's a good topic up with itself, is it not? We are in very trying times, and the topic today is about your patience and how you're coping with being tested, because these times are testing us. And for some of us, like never before, and for some of us, like yesterday, depending on who you are. So, why does God test? Why are these tests going on right now when we're inundated with so many things to deal with? I saw yesterday that NASA has announced that the day before our elections here, our federal elections, our presidential elections, that there'll be an asteroid that goes very close to Earth. And someone posted, nah, it's going to hit Earth. It's that kind of year. Very flip. No, I do not believe that the asteroid will hit Earth, nor does NASA. But it is that kind of year where there's something right after the other all the time. It's like a barrage, isn't it? Of course, there are two storms heading into the Gulf at the same time. And notice that I say, of course. Of course, this is happening. Of course, that is happening. Believe it or not, that is you and I talking from our greatest selves. Now, what do I mean? We've all been through such a year that we've grown, and we've grown to such an extent that when we hear about aliens arriving, when we hear about an asteroid going by, when we hear about two storms coming to the Gulf, instead of that being a big news story, we're like, of course, of course. Well, rise to that too. What else is next? It's because we've grown beyond it. We're already ready to handle it. So that will tell you something, intrepid listeners. That will tell you that you have grown so much that there is nothing that you truly cannot handle. And that means that there are great things to handle on the way. Does that mean that these great things are negative? No. It means that you must be ready for the ultimate change that is coming onto this universe, onto this planet, onto our solar system. I've been speaking about this more lately. Do you know that we are in such a time of change that astronomically we are in the exact same alignment with our planets, stars, and galaxies that they were during the time of our American Revolution, our American Civil War, and the fall of Rome? It's a significant time. And a significant time because it is a time of evolution and change. And in order for it to happen, we have to rise to it. We have to grow to it. And so we cannot be our little selves. We have to be our larger selves. So our larger selves can handle anything now. You can handle financial, pandemic, schooling your children. You may think you can't, but you got through it before and you're going to get through it again. You can handle it all. It was once said, and it's always said, that God does not give us more than we can handle. That is a very true statement, whether you know it to be God, Allah, Yahweh, Source, whatever you may know it as, energy. You are able to handle whatever is thrown at you, and no more than you can handle will be thrown at you. And these are those times as well, that what we are given is helping us to grow to times that we will be above what is happening to us and ready to move on to our highest, greatest selves. So we're all in a form of evolution on this planet. So what does that evolution mean? What are we coming to? Where I've spoken about it before is the time of heaven coming to earth. Now you cannot, no way see, for the most part, how we can go from the current times into a time of peace and harmony on earth, where we'll all know that we're one, where we all have no wars and we have peace and we are of one mind completely. We're of one mind now, by the way. We all do manifest as one. We all do choose global happenings of one mass intention and one mind. We're just so much still in our individual selves that we don't see it. But our individual selves will be forming into one, where telepathy will be more the rule of mind, where we will not have such hatred and such jealousy and such rage, and all of that has to be worked through and eliminated. So how do we do that? I will remind you. We do that by working through the dark shadows and biases that we all have, some to a lesser extent than others. Mine are minimal now, but they are there still. They are the biases. I'll tell you my bias. My bias is the assumption to be wary of people who call themselves Christian, because they often, I can find, when they call themselves Christian, they tend to be very judgmental. They tend to be name callers. They tend to be quite hateful. When I was posting overnight, well, quite late into the night, but not really overnight, I woke up this morning to someone calling me names. Why did they call me names? They assumed about me that I belonged to a certain faction, because I said to them that we should all have understanding about where people live their lives and what their story is. We should not assume that because someone is not completely against black and white a certain action, that they are for. Well, let me go there. I'll go there directly. I won't talk around it. There is an assumption that if you are pro-choice, or that you're not black and white pro-life as far as abortion goes, that you must be pro-abortion. And what I was explaining to some commenters overnight is that there is a story that people live, and we cannot assume, unless we're living their story, who they are and why they're in the situation they're in. And that the way to eradicate abortion in this world is not to make it a criminal act. It won't stop it. It's been happening since the dawn of time. It will only stop it through giving resources to those who are confronted with pregnancy, so that they know they have choices, hence pro-choice. People want to make it black and white. They want to make it you're either for abortion or against it. It isn't that way. It's not that simple, good people. It's complex. And, I'm speaking from a person who is, I feel, fundamentally pro-life. And pro-life outside the womb, too, I will tell you. And many people who say they are pro-life are not pro-life outside the womb. They go rah-rah over death. They go rah-rah over killing. They love wars, perhaps, some of them. They love death penalty. Eye for an eye. But they want to insist upon, no matter what situation you're in, that you have that baby. They abandon the baby, some of them, not all. I do not judge all who are, quote, pro-life they do not speak of one voice, but they judge of one voice very often. And I explained overnight that I've counseled people who have had abortions, and it's so painful. They live with it. It's a scar to their soul, to their inner being. But they didn't know any other way. There's this assumption, wrongly, that people use it as a matter of birth control and they're quite unemotional about it. But even people who portray themselves as unemotional about it are not unemotional about it. So what would eradicate abortion? Well, it went down. It's gone down, by the way, the number. Why did it go down? There was more access to health care. There was more access to resources where people knew they were not alone. If you give them resources, if you tell them you're not alone, we'll support you, we'll stand by your side. You can't pray abortion away. You have to act. You have to act. You have to support. You have to hold hands. You have to be as one and say, we are by your side. Now, if the person still says, I must still go through it, I find that it's still the best choice, then you can have tears. And then you can pray for them and you can hope. You can hope for their forgiveness. And yes, God is always involved. He knows before, during, and after what's going on. We seem to think we have this great power over God or that free will it's not a free gift, that God gives us his free will and then waits to see how we're going to screw it up. But we often do screw it up with our free will, but God has unconditional love. Only. We can't lose God's love, no matter what we do. But we do have consequences for our choices, which is why we suffer. Someone who has an abortion lives with a scar, so there is suffering. And perhaps regret. It is not our role to condemn them, it is our role to help them to heal as children of God. So it's not black and white, but yet people want to make it black and white because they're in their own scornful place. And so I was called names because I said, can we have understanding? I'm not pro. I just understand that people suffer. And are we not supposed to help them with that? Now, sometimes there's a holy person who is even a priest. I smiled loudly, not laughed. Who will say, and I've seen it so recently, that if one asks for forgiveness, no matter what they do, they will receive it, and then it can be let go. And it does apply to abortion. So if someone has forgiveness towards those who have abortion and wants to give them resources, are they really pro-abortion or are they more pro-life? It is something to discern, is it not? I ask you to think about it. Now, what I had to do last night was and today when I woke up, I had to allow the names that were called to me, the statements that said to me that I am evil and I am a murderer because I have understanding. I mean, I could see if I walked somebody into the facility and said, rah, rah, go for it. Maybe I'd be an accessory, but I didn't think but the name calling and the rage directed at me was justified. So I'm going to allow it to bounce off me and pray for the souls that felt they had to do that do not have love for others, that do not have understanding, that do not have patience, that do not have grace, that do not live by the teachings that they throw onto others. The one issue voters, one issue, and they stay by one issue, but will ignore everything else for that one issue. Interesting. It's so interesting. Now, ignoring the unjustifiable rage that came at me is my growth. I can shake my head not in condemnation or condescension, but I shake it as I shake it off my head. I shake it off because they are where they are. And I am where I am. And you are where you are. And we are in times where we have a decision between light and dark. And no one is perfect. I'm not perfect. As I told you, I have my bias against people who act holier than thou, speak holier than thou, and yet judge and condemn others for their choices. Their choices that they're judging from the outside. I also have biases given to me. Here's some coffee. I also have a bias given to me from growing up and watching too much news where I hear about crimes. So when I'm walking down an alley and a man enters the alley, I assume I have to be on guard. I have to use my gut to know whether I should be on guard. My gut will always tell me if someone is dangerous, sometimes someone isn't. But my biases go on edge. My biases sometimes assume. But most of the time now I know not to assume. And a lot of my biases now are gone, as I said. And so I have very small ones now. And many have larger ones still. But when we get to the time that we're getting to, biases will be eradicated. That is something to look forward to, and it's coming quicker than you think. It could very well come in our lifetime. It's actually supposed to. That time, that easier time. So back to being tested. It's important to keep in mind that when you are tested with your trials and tribulations every day, whether it be poverty, whether it be health, whether it be relationships, something is being lined up that is greater for you. And you have to be ready for it. So when something doesn't work out, it means that something greater is trying to come. It doesn't mean, though, that you choose it, because you have a free will. And many people are meant to go to an upgraded relationship, but they go lateral, and they go into what is comfortable for them. Excuse, please, any noise you may hear in the background. It's a very active household this morning. And hopefully you don't hear anything. But when we go lateral with our choices, with our and don't upgrade as we're supposed to, when something happens, when we go through changes in life, it just means we're stalling our inevitable greater life. It isn't a stop. It isn't a losing out. It's just a stall. So keep that in mind. Let's say you went through a divorce. Whenever we go through a divorce, it means that we're supposed to have an upgrade in our partner, in our lifestyle, in our lives. But some people will very quickly go into what they knew. They even would choose the same first name as the ex. That is lateral choice. It is one thing I often say to my clients, do not pick that first name again, please. But the lateral choice just means that we still have lessons that we want to learn or need to learn. And maybe there's a different face, but there are similarities. Maybe it's a slight upgrade, but not the upgrade that we would ultimately ask for. So we find ourselves yearning again. That's okay. Sometimes we have to go at our own pace. Oftentimes, sometimes we have to take small steps instead of large ones. As long as we're moving forward, most of the time, we're doing it right. So what can you do when you're inundated with things happening to you, when you don't know how much you can handle, where the burden is so heavy and large on you? What can you do? You can ask for help, and you can take care of yourself. Let's start with you. Try to take a moment each day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it does not have to be more. Center yourself. Perhaps walk in nature. Perhaps put your headphones on and just kind of go away in your own mind, taking deep, deep breaths. Make sure to get plenty of rest too in your life. Make sure to eat in a way that honors your body, at least for the most part. We can all have cheat moments, cheat days where we eat a little bit more sugar perhaps or something else. But taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself, giving yourself centeredness and a sense of peace. Asking for help from your angels and your spirit guides and your ascended masters such as Jesus and beloved Mary. Those things will help you through those times when you are tested. When you go to judge another, ask for help too. Ask for help to have discernment, patience. Do not pray for them in an egotistical way. Oh, I see that out there so much. I see that out there so much. It's not genuine. It comes from ego. Pray for them that whatever is holding them back from love, whatever is holding them in their hatred and their lack of understanding and their judgment, that it may be revealed, that they may be enlightened, that they may feel, that they may awaken, that they will connect to their soul. That's what we should pray for. Not pray that they come around to your way of thinking, that you're right and they're wrong. God loves us all. God loves us all. He will hope, and He will hope for our redemption no matter who we are. I I've recently been watching a TV show about Charles Manson, which is incredibly emotional for me to do, but I'm drawn to the story of that time because I'm drawn to understand why young people who had good lives chose a different path in joining up with him, and what was it about him that was so charming and so could pull them in. And I'm so drawn also to want to acknowledge the wonderful people that contributed to this life, that were wonderful people within, that were victims of his inner evil and mental illness. By the way, you can be mentally ill and not be evil, but sometimes you are mentally ill and evil. Sociopaths. And some of his victims, like Sharon Tate, for instance, were beautiful human beings inside and out. Beautiful. There's not like a negative thing you can say about her. And yet, at the pinnacle of her life, she passes in a horrible death. So I've had this draw to know about her and to more and more speak about her and such. So recently I had the opportunity to, in speaking about how God loves us all and unconditionally loves us all, how's it going for Charles Manson? Because if he is willing to be redeemed, he shall be redeemed. And what I've come to know recently is that he still doesn't want to be redeemed. He's quite happy being Charles Manson in all himself. And so he is still set apart in his passing in this other dimension from those who are enjoying the full benefits from heaven. Does that mean he's in hell? Maybe it's not the hell as we know it, but it's still set apart. And there is pain in being set apart in itself. But he seems to still want to be in that place. He's a stubborn soul. And so, but heaven will never give up on him. They will always look for an inner light to come upon him. They'll chip away and chip away, even if they can't chip away at it. Even if it's unchippable, they'll try, because they will never give up on us. So we should never give up on another, and we certainly should never give up on ourselves. So when you are tested, remember that God is working through you and with you for greater means. And if you can hang in there, taking it one day at a time, and make sure to take care of yourself, your rewards will come. And yes, nowadays it's coming during your life. It's not coming after you pass, when you go through your review, when you hope to get into heaven. It comes during your life. It'll come at that moment when you've given up on a relationship and there it is. It'll come during that moment when you think, I don't know if I'll ever get my prayer answered about help with money, but I've had faith and your faith is unrelenting. And then suddenly you're helped and you feel free. It's during those times when the miracle happens in any way. Even if it involves your children or your grandchildren. Does it mean when things don't work out that you're not loved, that you're not listened to? Nope. It just means always there's something greater going on. Our trials and tribulations always have an outcome of greater, even through the rawest pain, even through the most horrendous things, even through injustices. We are all evolving as a world to greater. Lessons have to be learned. Souls will agree to sacrifice in order for the higher good of all. It doesn't take our pain away, but it does answer the why. And it's unfortunate it has to happen, but it has to happen because we're human beings. And human beings come here with ego, with senses, with minds that can be programmed no matter how much we want to program them. And they get programmed with whatever we program them with, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. But you can always reprogram your ugly with good. Reprogramming can happen at any time. That's why I do hypnosis, because I know that. And so, know there is a purpose to these times, and there is a purpose to these tests. And why are we being inundated this year? Because we're speeding it up. And yes, there may be worse to come. But we're at a crossroads, good people. We're at a crossroads where we can choose the path that is easier or the path that is harder. We're at a crossroads now in the next couple of months where when we choose good versus bad, light versus dark. Yes, sirree. And it's a choice of a country. It's a choice of the world. And it's not just here in America. It's all over the world. That's why there's protesting in Belarus. That's why there's Brexit in Britain, England. That's why the pandemic is all over the world. The whole world is going through it. A time of change. A time of choosing between light and dark. What route will you choose? Be careful. Be careful. It's not always what you would assume. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of gaslighting. Gaslighting is especially used during Nazi times. Gaslighting is telling you that what you see is not real. You can look at a video and then someone will tell you what you see is not true. Or what you hear is not true when you're hearing it with your own ears. And then you start to wonder, is it true? Yes, it's true. Someone's trying to scam you. And it's happening every day throughout the day. So you must be very careful that you don't fall into the trap. And do not see where the light truly is. Now, if you do go down the route of dark, you eventually get swept into the light. You won't be hopeless. We'll just all suffer longer. No pressure. It's true. It's true. I'm laughing, but it's true. You see, my growth, my strength causes me to be able to laugh sometimes. Laughter gets me through things. It's the best medicine. So do we suffer longer? Or do we make it easier upon ourselves? It's a crossroads. And the full will, the whole will, can change at any second. So no matter where it's headed right now, it can change. I see where it's headed, but I'm not going to tell you because I am not going to mess with free will. I will just say to you that try to reach for the light. It'll be easier. Be discerning. Listen to your gut. Listen to your logic. Listen to your common sense. Take care of yourselves. No, and this you may want to hurt me, but I'm going to be truthful and say this. When you are tested the greatest, it means that you are meant to achieve the greatest, and you will have the greatest legacy. God is actually trying to bestow grand rewards upon you, but He must ready you. Those who have it easier are meant for less rewards. So don't assume that someone who's a billionaire has greater rewards than you. You don't know. The truth is they don't. And so, well, at least not all of them. And so, know that what you ask for is yours. So if you've asked for freedom, personal freedom, financial freedom, freedom from stress, freedom from illness, it is yours. It is yours. So God says, do they really want it? Let me push them, shove them, test them, and see what they do. If you still choose health, you got it. And there's one last thing I'll leave you with today. I've been talking so much lately, and thank you all of you who make the time to listen, because I truly, when I started these podcasts, wanted to keep them at 30 minutes. Because I have peers that talk for over an hour, and I have stopped listening to some of them because I don't have that kind of time, I feel. And here I am talking to you forever. I'm doing what I'm against, oh my goodness, but there's so much to say right now, and so forgive me. I've been rambling longer lately. I'll try to discipline myself for next time, but I will say this one last thing to you that I learned from a wonderful peer of mine, Cash Peters. He actually is an artist, and he's very intuitive, and he's connected to spirit, and he's adorable. I'll just tell you that, it's adorable. Check him out on YouTube. He has cashpeters.com. It is currently kind of down, that website, but he's definitely on YouTube, and he's also on Twitter. He is a teacher, and he said something so awesome recently. He said that in order to attract what you want, in order to achieve what you're asking for in the way of wealth, in the way of health, you have to be aligned with it. In other words, if you want to heal yourself, you have to be in a state of healed already. You have to raise your vibration. You cannot attract wealth if you're in a state of poverty, if you're in a state of lack, if that's where your mind is, if that's where your beliefs are. And how many of you, and I know I've done it too, you ask for help for finances, perhaps. Please give me the raise. Please help me win the lottery. Please get me that economic impact check. Please give me my unemployment. Please help, please help, please help. When you're in that state, you're actually stalling your help. But if you can get into a state of abundance, if you can get into a state of gratitude for what you do have, if you can even be a tractor on steroids, what you have to be is in a state of, not only do I already have it, I have more than. So if you want wealth, walk around feeling and thinking wealthy. Look at what you know you can have. Look through the catalogs. Look in the stores. Look at the shore homes. You have to eradicate those feelings of, I can't afford it now, but I hope I can one day. I shouldn't spend too much. I can't afford it. No, you cannot feel that. You cannot say that. You cannot think that. You have to be in the state of what you want to physically live. You have to be in the state mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and then it will show up in your physical life. So his very simple words were, you have to be already in the state of what you want to see in your physical life. You have to already be wealthy in mind, body, and spirit, and then it will show up in your physical life. You have to be in the state of healing. You have to achieve it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually before you see it physically. You have to do it on an energetic level. I struggle with this myself with my own health. When I've been in the energetic level of full healing, I've achieved healing. But when I'm in a state of imperfection with it, I struggle. I'm fine now overall, so don't worry about me. But I struggle. I do it with wealth. I've achieved wealth more because I'm working on it. I'm getting over. I'm working on my thoughts, my feelings. I'm working on my own programming. And so I have broken down my walls to wealth, but I'm still working on it. I promise you, though, when I am a millionaire, I'll still do my podcast. I'll still serve. Not too much will change. I'll just have more freedom to do it. So I need to always be in a state of knowing I have full financial freedom now, full freedom altogether to do service in the largest way. And when I'm in that full state, I will see it fully. If you want to be in a happy, fulfilled relationship, you must feel with body, mind, and spirit, it is yours now. And then watch people around you change, or watch someone new come into your life. You must accept what you want to see as yours now. I hope that's clear. I hope you understand it. But the way the Cash put it, it was so aha. You have to raise your vibration to it in order to have it. Raise your vibration out of lack, out of seeing what you don't have. Raise it to I have it all, and you will see it all. I'm going to leave you with that today. And hope for you to have a wondrous, blessing-filled Sunday and a glorious week. I would like to one thing say to you about this week. It is going to be a week of darkness and fear. Stay far from it. Do not listen. It is fallacy. It is anti-God. Stay afar from it. And live in your bubble. In happiness, in goodness, in service, in gratitude, in love. Be sure once again to go to my website, lisahop.com. Check out all that I do. And also, I just started recording a series, What Does Lisa Do? Which explains, not altogether in depth, but somewhat in depth, all the services that I do. So when you don't know what you're looking for, it explains it a little bit more fully so you can know what you're fully drawn to, in the hopes of helping. So be sure to do that as well. Like and follow on my Facebook page under Spiritual Coach Lisa Hop. And please, again, if you're hearing this on YouTube, like, subscribe, share. If you're on Spotify, thank you, love it. And if you're coming to this through Spreaker, please also subscribe and like. Comments are welcome. Thank you so much. Many blessings.